All right, today we are diving headfirst into a Reddit story that just completely took over the internet. Seriously, it's one of those relationship dramas that turns thousands of people into armchair detectives overnight. So let's get right into it. This is a wild story about modern relationships, tricky office dynamics, and that super blurry line between a friendship and a flat-out betrayal. And it all kicks off with this text message. Just imagine for a second finding this on your boyfriend's phone while he's asleep, from a coworker you've never even met. This one message is the spark that lights the whole fire, dropping us right into the thick of it. This wasn't some new fling. We're talking about a couple that had been together for 5 years. So you'd think things were pretty solid, right? But that one text message, well, it ripped the curtain back on a whole hidden dynamic, something that had been growing right under the surface, completely out of sight. So let's meet our cast. First up, we have our storyteller, a 23-year-old woman who Reddit calls the OP, or original poster. After 5 years with her guy, she was suddenly questioning absolutely everything. And at the center of this whole storm is her 25-year-old boyfriend, who we're just going to call Jake. And his whole defense? That everything was totally innocent, just one big misunderstanding. And finally, rounding out this little trio, we have the 28-year-old work wife, Amy. She's the one who sent the text, and as we're about to find out, she's the source of a whole lot more. Okay, this timeline is actually super important for context. So the girlfriend and Jake have a 5-year history. That's a serious long-term thing. But Amy, the so-called work wife, she's only been in the picture for 2 of those years. You got to keep that timeline in your head as we start to see where everyone's loyalties really are. So after the girlfriend, understandably freaks out about the text, Jake has this supposedly brilliant idea. He says, "Hey, just come to the bar with me and my coworkers. You'll meet Amy, and you'll see it's nothing." Well, let's just say his plan to calm her down backfired in the most spectacular way possible. I mean, the whole evening just turned into a parade of red flags. Amy was all over Jake, constantly touching him, leaning on him. She even kissed him on the cheek, and he just acted like this was totally normal. Then she starts bragging about sleeping with a bunch of their colleagues and even admits to sending nudes to get a shift covered. And the grand finale? She starts crying about being lonely, and Jake is the one comforting her, all while his actual girlfriend is sitting right there watching this entire train wreck unfold. And get this, while she's behaving in this incredibly flirtatious, boundary-stomping way, Amy keeps insisting her feelings for Jake are completely platonic. She tells the girlfriend she loves him like a brother. The OP, and pretty soon the entire internet, saw a massive disconnect between what she was saying and what she was doing. Just when you think it can't possibly get any worse, oh, but it does. Feeling super suspicious, the girlfriend checks Jake's phone again later, and she finds that their text history only goes back a few months, even though they'd been working together for 2 years. It was pretty clear that chunks of their conversation had been intentionally wiped. So, what do you do in a situation like this? You take your story to the court of public opinion, Reddit. And thousands upon thousands of people weighed in. They didn't just offer sympathy, they came back with a crystal clear diagnosis of what was really going on. It's like for every single excuse Jake had, the Reddit community had a label, and they did not hold back. What he called just a joke, they immediately called emotional cheating. His claim that her behavior was, quote, normal, they called it what it was, a field of major red flags. And his whole "she's like a sister" line was seen as just deeply disrespectful. Oh, and when he tried to make her feel crazy and paranoid, yep, they identified that right away as classic gaslighting. So many of the commenters honed in on this specific concept, emotional infidelity. See, it's not always about a physical act. It's about giving away that deep connection, that trust, and that emotional support that should really belong to your partner. Running over to another woman's house to fix things for her, comforting her through her meltdowns. Redditors argued this was a textbook case. The community also flagged a really common psychological trap she might fall into, the sunken cost fallacy. Basically, tons of people were worried she might stay with Jake, not because the relationship was actually good for her now, but simply because she'd already put 5 years of her life into it. It's that feeling of, I can't leave now, I've already invested so much. This comment, right here, I think it just perfectly nails the heart of the whole issue. The problem wasn't just Amy's wild behavior, it was Jake's complete failure to do anything about it. As so many people pointed out, a partner who actually loves and respects you should instinctively protect the relationship. You shouldn't even have to ask. Okay, so we've got the diagnosis from Dr. Reddit. Now for the prescription. With all the problems laid out so clearly, what in the world should she do? Well, the advice came pouring in, but it mostly pointed in a few very clear directions.
And the verdict was pretty decisive. Look at this. A whopping 55%, over half the people, were just like, nope, done, leave him immediately. But a pretty big group, 30%, suggested a more careful approach, one focused on setting some really hard boundaries. A much smaller group thought it could be talked out, and then you've got the 5% who were just convinced he was already physically cheating.
Now, for those who advised trying to fix it, they laid out a really clear, actionable plan. Step 1, name the specific behaviors that are not okay. The constant touching, the cheek kisses, the late-night comforting. Step 2, explain why they're a problem and how they disrespect the relationship. But the most crucial step was number 3. Watch his reaction. Does he get defensive and argumentative, or is he actually understanding? Because if he resists, that's your final answer. The relationship is toast. But, a lot of users pushed back hard against even trying to have another conversation. And their point was really powerful. The conversation already happened. The moment he brought his girlfriend to that bar and let Amy act like that right in front of her, he showed her exactly where his priorities were. He had already given his answer loud and clear. He didn't care how she felt about it. So what can we all take away from this whole internet saga? I mean, beyond just this one couple's drama, this case is actually a massive lesson in trust, boundaries, and what respect looks like in a modern relationship. So here are the big takeaways. First, this whole work spouse idea can be a really slippery slope. Second, and this one is pretty chilling, a lot of commenters said that if they act like this in public, right in front of you, just imagine how they act in private. Third, this story is a huge testament to trusting your gut. Her intuition was screaming at her from the very beginning, and she was right. And finally, maybe the most critical lesson of all, setting boundaries isn't about trying to control someone else. It's about defining what you will and will not accept in your own life. And that really leaves us with the million-dollar question at the center of this whole thing. Look, everyone has friends outside of their relationship, but this case forces us all to ask, at what point does that close friendship cross a sacred line? When does that deep emotional connection with someone else become a deep betrayal of the person you're supposed to be with? Definitely something to think about.